much discussed that when Walt shoots Mike, it seems so spontaneous. It seems like something where something burst in his head, and his anger was absolutely uncontrollable at that moment. He got the gun and just did it. And then he spends several beats there with the camera on him, looking shocked that he did it, and not really being sure that he did it. And then he goes off and explains to his dying victim, I didn't need to do that, did I? I could have just asked Lydia for that. Gee, that's a shame. It's like he's completely, so he's going to forgive himself for it ultimately, but it was this anger, and I'm thinking, Mike hit a nerve with Walt when he told him that you're so stupid, you can't handle that. We had a good thing, and
know your place.
And you didn't know your place, you had to go kill Gus. And that idea of, and so that, but I'm thinking that he's primed for that anger with Mike because of Mike's taking Jesse. Co-opting his relationship with Jesse, which...
And to reflect it from the other side just for a second, I mean, Mike is disgusted with Walter because Walter doesn't respect Mike's values. Mike, Walter is the anti-Mike culture. He doesn't understand Mike culture. So again, Mike fights to protect his legacy. Like all the other guys. Anyway,
there's one male character that we really haven't talked about in this at all, other than a couple of asides about a new show that started this week. And that is Saul Goodman. How the hell does he fit into all this? And will there be a book on Better Call Saul and Masculinity?
Obviously there will have to be, I think. What's interesting is with Saul is that we get the idea that he has had this really strange background, where he's got all these different wives, and he's got his masseuse, and he's got he's got his fingers in all these different pies, and his masseuse, and yet he's Vince Gilligan said he's the one character who actually has the least conflict, and so it's ironic that the sequel takes on him, because he says he's happy. He's a happy man. And Gilligan says it's really hard to make drama out of someone who's happy. And so they had to give him problems from his past so that he became Saul. But Saul was who he ultimately wanted to be. He was happy at that point. And yet no family. And we were having this debate among ourselves just before this panel, is that he is always ratcheting at me, well, that's going to call for the deluxe package, Walt, you're not going to charge for that. And he's all about collecting the money, but it doesn't seem that he's in it for the money. He's not ever going to cash out like Jesse would or Mike. He's in it for the game. I mean, that's what I was arguing, is that he's in it for the fun. He's having fun doing this and getting away with stuff.
In my terms, then, it would be expertise. You has the expertise.
Expertise, yeah. Like it said in that last episode of it, I'm the best lawyer.
Negotiating with Tuco.
You can negotiate someone from death to a broken leg. That is skill. Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned in my review of the first episode of Better Call Saul, I mean, we underestimate Saul. Saul got away with it. He's the only one. He's the only one who made it, who landed on his feet, who built the lifeboat, got in it, and rowed away. And all the rest of them, the ship's not sinking, or I'm going to save the ship, or, I'll blow up the ship. And Saul's like, see ya.
He's working at a Cinnabon, really landing on your
I have to assume that he's got some money.
I mean, he does, but for him, being that kind of lawyer, and then
that's a big
being reduced down to working at a Cinnabon, that could be his own personal hell too.
Well, Vince Gilligan said that actually. He said that this is the worst thing that could happen to Saul because he loved seeing himself on the television. He loved seeing himself on billboards, and now he has to hide and not be anyone, be a nobody. That's the worst thing that can happen to him. But Gilligan's also making noise in the last few days about how he finds that opening to the first episode of Better Call Saul really compelling. How the story of what happens next to that man is interesting. There may be more with it. You think so?
I mean, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
In fact, I watched that opening 3 times, just the opening.
And it's fascinating because the opening does employ the kind of cinematography that was very characteristic of Breaking Bad, very characteristic of certain Western genres that Gilligan loves, and they're very odd camera angles, and it's black and white, and it's set aside for some purpose, yeah.
Well, that's the Breaking Bad house style, you know, like that shot. I love the shot in the season opener of Better Call Saul in the skate park, where it starts upside down and you're disoriented. That's such a
Yes.
Breaking Bad thing.
Yeah.
And then to pull out into the park shot, I mean, that's just their style. I love it.
Well, and the first time I saw it, I wondered, when? I wasn't sure I was watching Better Call Saul.
It was a cold opening of the coldest kind, which, yeah,
Yeah.
which,
It is the moment when you, I think the moment you know it's Saul is when you see the top of his head.
Yeah.
I unfortunately read the, it was a GQ, I think, art interview with Odenkirk, in which he talked about being in the Cinnabon factory for the making of it. And so I knew when I saw the cinnamon rolls where we were in, and then they show us Omaha, and then, okay, so I know this is Saul here. But if I hadn't known that, I would have been very confused. And this is one of the things that many of the critics of Breaking Bad talked about, is that it created its own culture, an agreement with the viewers that over the course of, particularly from the